Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. From July 4th through August 26th, if you use this promo code, you will automatically be entered into a drawing to win a set of all 4 Commander 2019 decks. Also, there is another way to enter where no purchase is necessary. See the description below for full details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends. It is another big day of Commander 2019 previews. Today we're going to look at all of the cards previewed from the Primal Genesis deck. That is the Populate deck. If you're curious as to the sources of the preview cards, just check out the description below. All that information is linked down there. But without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, before we get into the 100 cards for the Primal Genesis deck, there was one card from yesterday's Mystic Intellect video that was missing. That's Bloodthirsty Blade. This card is also going to be in tomorrow's deck, which is the Merciless Rage Madness deck. But just in case you're trying to piece together these deck lists, I just wanted to show you this card quickly. I don't have a lot to say about it. It's actually a really cool commander card. I love the Goat ability. This is a unique spin on equipment. I like the card a lot. I could see myself playing it in Commander and being very happy with it. Okay, one more card that was missing from a previous deck. This time we're going back 2 days, back to the Faceless Menace deck. This was a card that we were missing, and this will also be in tomorrow's deck as well. Mire and Misery. Not a lot to say about it. Black and 1, sorcery, each opponent sacrifices a creature or enchantment. It's an edict effect that actually gives the opponents more room for decision making. That's not really a great thing. However, what's unique about this is it is a way for black to maybe kind of sort of deal with an enchantment. That's something you don't usually see, so that's intriguing, I'll give it that. The card itself, though, I just don't think is really all that exciting. I could play it out of the box against the other decks. It will be just fine, I think. At the end of the day, though, this is a card I would remove and upgrade with something else that's more consistent. So the first 3 cards we're going to look at today are going to be foil cards that are in the colors of the Commander deck. You could use these interchangeably out of the box as your commander if you chose to, but this is the primary one that you'll see featured at the front of the box. Gearred Conclave Exile. Now, this is a very good card for Populate. Here's what I like about this one, though. It's a 2/5 for 5, but you're also getting the 4/4 green Rhino creature token with Trample into play, so you're actually getting 6/9 power toughness on the battlefield for just 5. That's pretty sweet. Plus, whenever this attacks, you get to Populate. The token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. This is a great way to recover from a board sweep. If you're putting out a lot of tokens, you're populating, you're just going to town, all of a sudden someone sweeps the board, you have to recover. This is going to help you recover a little bit quicker. This can come back into play from the command zone, brings with it a Rhino token, so now you have a target for Populate, plus next turn you can attack with it, create another token, you just get back on your feet again. This card was previously previewed at Gen Con, and we did talk about it in the video when it was originally previewed, so I did go into a little more detail there if you want to check that out. But overall, I do like this commander a lot. Here's the second card out of the box, so you might choose to be your commander. It is Atla Palani Nest Tender. It's going to cost you Naya colors and 1. Legendary creature, Human Shaman 2/3. Pay 2 tap. Create a 0/1 green egg creature token with Defender. Whenever an egg you control dies, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Wow, okay, so there is a lot happening here. First off, how does this tie in with Populate? Well, ties in because you're creating the 0/1 green egg creature tokens with Defender. Yeah, you can populate those, but obviously you want them to die. That's the whole point of this card. One thing I'll say, though, is they are a deterrent for people attacking you, if nothing else. If you put these out, people are just going to get off your back, attack somebody else because they don't want you digging in and getting these great creatures out of your deck, right? And that's the whole key here. If you can get rid of these, maybe you sacrifice eggs or what have you, if you were to build around this card, which I do think it's better if you completely build around it as opposed to making it the commander out of the box here, this card could be very powerful. So if you had a lot of high casting cost creatures with a lot of strong abilities, trample, even haste would be good here. Think about some creatures too that maybe have good enters the battlefield abilities to play along with this. Changelings would count as eggs too, and you have the ability to create these eggs, sacrifice them, and just dig for those creatures. That could get pretty insane pretty quickly. Now you could also add some extra eggs into your deck and kind of go maybe light egg tribal. There are, of course, other eggs in Magic or cards that make eggs, things like Nesting Dragon, for example, that would be good with this card in a deck. Also, you want some sack outlets like Ashnod's Altar. As a matter of fact, if you take this, Ashnod's Altar, and Thornbite Staff, You got a combo there that will let you keep pulling creatures out of your deck and put them directly into play. So I do think there's a lot of potential for this, and I think a lot of people are going to want to build around this card outside of this deck. Marasai, Breaker of the Coil. Okay, this is just a fun commander. Again, is this the best choice for this deck out of the box? Probably not, but you could build around this and have a lot of fun with it. This will cost you Naya and 1 for a 5/4 legendary creature cat warrior. Your opponents can't cast spells during combat. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, goad each creature that player controls. So here's the goad mechanic again. I love this mechanic. So imagine playing this with a whole bunch of unblockable creatures. You just attack one player, now they have to attack someone else with those creatures. I guess at the end of the game, if it comes down to you and one other person, you might need some other trick in your arsenal to finish it off. But imagine being able to force people to attack each other throughout the game. Yeah, this is just fun. People are going to want to play with this because it is unique and different. Cliffside Rescuer. This was in yesterday's Mystic Intellect deck as well, so we talked about it at length then, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it today, but I will say this quickly. If I'm playing white in Commander, yeah, this is a good card. I would totally play this because, first off, it's a deterrent. If someone wants to mess with your stuff and this is on the battlefield, they'll think twice. They might go and mess with somebody else. Secondly, if you want to give protection to opponents to some big creature or your commander, sometimes you might even be able to knock somebody out of the game. Commander's Insignia. This is a really cool anthem for Commander. 2 white and 2. It's an enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1 for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. So notice, it doesn't have to be on the battlefield to count. If I cast my commander 5 times in this game and this is not on the battlefield, but then I play it, right out of the gate, all my creatures get +5/+5. That kind of surprise is what's going to win you games. More so than having it sit out on the battlefield the whole time, because yes, it's great that it scales up as the game goes on, but at some point an opponent's going to destroy this thing. They have to, it will just get out of control if they don't. But if you can surprise them and play it in the middle of the game, you might be able to knock somebody out. This is going to be better, obviously, with go-wide strategies like Populate. Going to be very good with Trample. This also gets a little bump from partner commanders, which is worth noting. And also, any commander that's going to be cheap, you're going to be playing a lot throughout the game. Commanders that like to get in the red zone and rumble, they're going to die more frequently, so you're going to play them more frequently. Overall, though, this is a very sweet card. Doomed Artisan. I love the flavor here. The power isn't so amazing behind this card, but let's look at it. White and 2, 1/1 Human Artificer. Sculptures you control can't attack or block. At the beginning of your end step, create a colorless sculpture artifact creature token with the creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of sculptures you control. Okay, so again, it does work with changelings, so I guess that's worth noting. And ultimately, the idea behind this card and why it's a flavor win, the artisan makes the sculptures and he's doomed, so they can't really do anything until he's gone, but once he's gone, they come to life. Okay, that's kind of sweet, but it's going to take a little while to build up your sculptures, and if your Doomed Artisan dies too soon, yeah, you're not getting a ton out of this card. Now, it didn't cost you that much, I guess, a white and 2, but it is very fragile. Now, Populate is the best way to handle this card, I think. There's other things you could do with it, but Populate is going to be the most effective. That way, if the Artisan dies too soon, you could still populate the tokens and get some value there. Now, outside of this deck, maybe you have an Aristocrats plan and you think this can help you with token generation. It can, but there's also probably more efficient ways to do that. This also combos with things like Hellkite Tyrant or Mirror Weaver, but a lot of things do, so I don't know. This is fine out of the box, like I'd be happy to play with it, but if I'm going to upgrade the deck, this might be one of the first things to go. Song of the World Soul. Yep, good for Populate decks, absolutely. Good for token decks, you'll be happy to play this. 6 is a little pricey, but not bad. Ultimately, for the power behind this card, whenever you play a spell after this point, you get to populate each time. Nothing wrong with that. Obviously, like a lot of cards we're going to talk about today, this is better with Doubling Season, Parallel Lives, Primal Vigor, Anointed Procession, things like that. Geared's Belligerence. Okay, this is pretty sweet, actually, in a Populate deck. Like, nothing crazy here. We talked about this last weekend because it was actually previewed at Gen Con, so I won't spend a ton of time on it. But you're going to always be happy to have removal. This is removal. Also, every time the creatures die that have been hit by this during that turn, you get to populate. And think of it this way. Sometimes you might have combat or something else occur, and then you could go ahead and play this, finish off some creatures, get more value out of it, or play it in conjunction with other removal spells. Even if you're just killing a couple of creatures with this, populating a couple times, that could be a good enough swing for you to pull ahead. If you have a way to make more creatures on the battlefield have 1 toughness, and there are cards that do that. We saw one in the Mystic Intellect deck yesterday. It's not in this deck though, it was a blue card. But if you're able to do something along those lines, then yeah, you might get more value out of this. Ultimately though, you'll be happy to play this in the Populate deck. This next one is a Portuguese language preview. Hate Mirage, a red and 3, sorcery. Choose up to 2 target creatures you don't control. For each of those creatures, create a token that is a copy of those creatures. Those tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, so first thing I gotta point out, in a Populate deck, this is good because you can copy a couple of your opponent's creatures, you make these tokens, and then you could populate those tokens, and those Populate versions will stick around, so that's nice. That's one way to look at this. It's definitely playable even if you can't populate those tokens. Now, outside of this deck, you might want to throw this into a Brutaclad build. It could be good there. This card interacts favorably with Sundial of the Infinite as well. And we're going to see it again tomorrow because this is also part of the Merciless Rage Madness deck. Tectonic Hellion. Okay, this is a 2 red and 5 Hellion with haste, 8/5. When this attacks, each player who controls the most lands sacrifices 2 lands. Okay, so this feels like fair land destruction for me, if there is such a thing, because it just kind of keeps everything even. If somebody's pulling ahead on lands, and it's not you, obviously, you probably don't want to lose your own lands, but if another player is pulling ahead on lands, you could attack with this, and they'd have to sacrifice, and it kind of evens out the game a little bit. Now, granted, there's players out there that don't mind seeing their lands go to the graveyard, get Rog Monster players, even Lord Windgrace players, so it's not going to always be amazing. But I guess you could also throw this in those type of strategies too, and if you're the one with the most lands, it wouldn't be as biting. Actually, it could be very helpful at times, especially with Get Rog Monster. So that is one way to look at it, but ultimately, this card is maybe just a little too balanced for Commander for me. I do feel like it's a cool idea, it's a cool design, but this is one of those cards I would probably take out when I upgrade the deck. Full Flowering. Okay, yes, I will play this. Pay a green, 2x, sorcery, populate X times. This is incredible for a token deck. Okay, so expect to see a lot of this if you have friends that play token strategies in the future, because this is just going to be a staple in those decks. Now, like I mentioned earlier, that whole suite of doubling season style cards make this better, but you know what else makes this better? Unbound Flourishing for Modern Horizons. That card would also play great with this. Oran Frostfang. It looks like Oran Viper grew up. 2 green and 3 snow creatures, so for you snow fans out there, pay attention to this one. It's also a snake. 2/6. Attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Okay, so basically if I'm in green and I have creatures I want this, yeah, this card is super sweet. Sure, most decks won't take advantage of the fact that this is a snow creature, but I don't care. If I have big trample creatures, this card is going to be amazing. If I'm going wide like this deck is with the Populate mechanic and the tokens, this card is going to be amazing. This is another card you're going to see in a lot of decks in the future. Selesnya Eulogist. This is super awesome. Green and 2, Centaur Druid, 3/3. Pay a green and 2, exile target creature card from a graveyard, then populate. So this does not tap. You can use it as long as you have mana. It goes to any graveyard, notice, not just yours or something like that. Basically, it's just going to pick creatures out of graveyards. And you know what? Sometimes that's good enough. You don't want your opponents to have access to a lot of stuff in their graveyard. It might not be Scavenging Ooze, but if they can reanimate a creature later in the game, this just might cut them off at the pass. But also, it furthers your strategy by populating every time you do that. This is perfect for this deck, but could still be playable even if I'm not all in on the token and populate strategy. Even if I have a few ways to create tokens in my deck, this is still a card that could give me a lot of value. Voice of Many. We talked about this card previously, so I won't spend a ton of time on it. This is in the Faceless Menace Morph deck. What I said last time was, it's fine, like a 3/3 body for 4, maybe I draw some cards, wonderful. Nothing crazy though. Maybe better in an elf deck where the body could matter a little more because it is an elf and there'll be other synergies to play along with this. In the deck out of the box, it's just fine. I mean, most of the time you're going to have more creatures than your opponents with this deck. But as the game goes on and opponents drop out, you might not get a lot out of this card all the time. Tarngarth, First Mate, from the Weatherlight. This is a sweet card too. Green, red, and 2, legendary creature, Minotaur Warrior, 5/5. This can't be blocked by more than one creature. Whenever an opponent attacks with one or more creatures, if this is tapped, you may have that opponent gain control of this until end of combat. If you do, choose a player or planeswalker that opponent is attacking, and this will attack that player or planeswalker. Okay, so in the Populate deck, like this is just fine. It's like a fun card, you put it out there. You give it away as people are attacking, it just gives more damage to wherever their creatures were going in the first place. But where this could really shine is as a commander. Could you imagine this coming out of your command zone, giving commander damage, spreading that damage around, attacking frequently? And yeah, at some point it's going to die, but then you just cast it again. It's not all that expensive either for 4 to start off. Now sure, there's sack outlets out there, but it is a May ability. You don't have to give this to somebody that has a way to sacrifice it. Sure, there could be cards in the hand that could sacrifice it at instant speed, and you could get burned that way once in a while. But who cares? If it's your commander, it's just going to come back again. This could be a lot of fun to build around. Idol of Oblivion. This costs 2. It's an artifact. Tap. Draw a card. Activate this ability only if you created a token this turn. Pay 8. Tap and sacrifice this. Create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. Okay, so what's nice about this in the Populate deck is both of those abilities are very relevant. Hopefully you're making a lot of tokens over time, so you're drawing extra cards with that first ability. And if you need a big token that you want to populate, you can go ahead and get that 10/10 Eldrazi token for just 8 mana, tapping and sacrificing this at some point. So ultimately, a lot of values to be had here. If I'm not all in on the populate, like that second ability isn't as exciting, but it could be relevant. But it doesn't really matter because just creating tokens regularly, drawing cards with this, the value is there for what you're paying for it for sure. You're going to see this in a lot of token decks. In some ways, it feels like white card draw, even though it is colorless. It ties in very closely to a mechanic that is strong in white. And white is always looking for more ways to draw cards. It's something they're not necessarily good at. This can do that for just 2 mana and the requirement of creating a token periodically. This is definitely going to be popular among token players for sure. Scaratiller. Okay, this is in every deck. We've talked about it like 4 times now, I think, so I won't go into the details again. But yeah, it's a good card. Long story short, I'm glad they included it in all the decks. It is something that I could see playing in a number of my commander decks. Okay, time for the reprints that you'll find in this deck, and we're going to go faster through these because you know what these cards do. I'm just going to kind of give you some highlights as we move through. However, I do want to point out that the new cards in these decks, they are not standard or modern legal. They are legal in Eternal formats though, so all those cards we just talked about, you could play them in Vintage or Legacy if you wanted to. Now the reprints though, they are going to be legal wherever they were legal before. So we're going to start off with Desolation Twin. This is the first time this card has been reprinted. It's from Battle for Zendikar. Angel of Sanctions. This one is a mythic, and this is the first time it's been reprinted. It's from Amonkhet. Hour of Reckoning. This gets some new art, and this is a $2 to $3 card if you were looking to pick up one of the previous copies. Intangible Virtue is here. Completely makes sense, of course, in this deck. Phyrexian Rebirth. You get a copy of that. Here's an egg for you out of the box. It's Rock Egg. Next, we have a copy of Rootborn Defenses. Tristani's Judgment. This is the first time it's been reprinted. It's from Return to Ravnica. Wingmate Rock, another mythic here. This is the first time it's been reprinted from Khans of Tarkir. Dragonmaster Outcast, yet another mythic, and this is about a $3 to $5 card for the previous copies. Felden of the Third Path. Now, this is a reprint from Commander 2014. It was also reprinted in Commander Anthology Volume 2, but it was only reprinted as a foil. So if you wanted a non-foil copy of the card, here's another opportunity to get one. The other copies will run you about $3 to $4. Flame Rush Rider. This is the first time it's been reprinted. It's from Fate Reforged. Heartpiercer Manticore. First time this one's been reprinted too. This one's from Amonkhet. Beast Within. Great card. It has seen a little bit of modern sideboard play. Colossal Majesty, not an old card here. First time it's been reprinted though, and it is from Magic 2019. Cultivate, always a good card to have in these green decks. Druid's Deliverance, this actually gets some new art. Elemental Bond, nice value reprint, about a $2 to $3 card here. Explore shows up again here. You'll find this sometimes in modern Scapeshift builds. Farseek, this is another card you'll find in modern Scapeshift builds. Fresh Meat, great card for this deck. It does allow you to recover immediately from a board sweep. Garruk Primal Hunter. So each of these decks do have a Mythic Planeswalker that has been reprinted. This is the one for this deck. Not a bad inclusion, a $6 to $7 card here. Garruk's Pack Leader shows up here as well. Giant Adaphage. This is the first time it's been reprinted. It's from Gatecrash, and it is a Mythic. Harmonize is here. Always a good card to have, for sure, if you're playing green. Momentous Fall, this is a $4 card, never been reprinted before, originally from Rise of the Eldrazi. Next we have Rampaging Baloths. Sakura Tribe Elder. We saw this card in another deck a few days ago too, but they did go with the Friday Night Magic promo art. This was also used on a Magic Online promo too. $2 to $3 card, and it does see play in modern Scapeshift builds as well. Second Harvest. This is the first time it's been reprinted. It's from Shadows over Innistrad. Here's Shamanic Revelation. This is a $2 card, and they did use the art from the Buy a Box promo. This art was also found on a Magic the Gathering Online promo too. Slice and Twain is here. Soul of Zendikar, another mythic here. This is the first time it's been reprinted. It's from Magic 2015. Now, they actually went with the art from the promo version here. This is the first time you can get a copy of this card with this art and have it not be in foil. Thragtusk, this is a solid card, and it's a $2 to $3 card, so it has a little bit of value too. You'll find this in Tron sideboards in Modern. Hamara Tandris, this is the first time this one has been reprinted. It's from Dragon's Maze. Growing Ranks is here, of course, perfect for Populate. Naya Charm shows up as well. I always love these charms. They add a lot of versatility. Sundering Growth is here. Dig into your opponent's board state while you go ahead and still populate and carry out your game plan. Tristani, Selesnya's Voice. This is about a $3 card. It is another mythic. Originally from Return to Ravnica, it got a reprint with this art in the Selesnya Guild kit, but that copy was foil. So again, if you wanted this art in a non-foil version, well, here's your chance. Vitu-Ghazi Guildmage, this is the first time it's been reprinted. It's from Return to Ravnica. Wayfaring Temple is here. Lightning Greaves, this is a Commander staple, and it does get printed from time to time in these products, but even so, those copies will run you about $7 to $10. On top of that, they gave us the art from the Friday Night Magic promo copy. Those run you about $25. And again, if you ever wanted a copy of that card in non-foil, well, here's your chance. This art also got some use on Magic the Gathering Online too in the promo version. Mimic Vat, this is about a $2 card, and it does get new art. Soul Ring looks like it's going to be in all the decks again this year, and that's not a bad thing. This is a great Commander card, great vintage card, and those Commander copies, even though they do come out frequently, they still run around $5. Soul Foundry, this is about a $3 card. Believe it or not, this has never been reprinted, originally from Meriden. Ash Barrens is here as we move to the lands, and it looks like this is going to be in all 4 decks too. Pauper players are going to be happy about that. This is a Pauper staple, and it runs you about $3 to $4 currently. Blossoming Sands is here. You're going to find this in Standard Banned Scapeshift. Also, Pauper Slivers, Pauper Hexproof decks run this too. Boros Garrison, this is in Modern Amulet Titan. Pauper Snow Mardu Monarch also runs it. Cinderglade, this is the 3rd battle land that we've seen as we've been looking at these decks now. This is a $4 card originally from Battle for Zendikar, also had an Expedition made and an Open House promo during that time, but this is the first time it's being reprinted in a new product. All of these do see fringe Modern play, but this one is pretty consistently played in Scapeshift builds. Command Tower is here as well, looks like it's going to be in all the decks. This is a $2 to $3 card though. Evolving Wilds, this is a Pauper staple. This also does see some standard play in Scapeshift variants. Exotic Orchard shows up again. This is a $2 to $3 card. Gargoyle Castle is here. Grey Pelt Refuge is here. You get a Gruul Turf. A Jungle Shrine. Kazandu Refuge. Krosan Verge. Myriad Landscape shows up again. This is a $2 to $3 card. Naya Panorama is here. Rogue's Passage. Rugged Highlands. Sometimes you find this in Pauper Tron. Selesnya Sanctuary. You're going to find this in Modern Amulet Titan builds sometimes, and also Pauper Slivers. Sungrass Prairie is here. This is a $1 to $3 card for the other printings. Terramorphic Expanse is here again. Sees Pauper play. And that brings us to the basic lands. This is the 3 different art styles you'll find for plains. 7 of them all together in the deck. Here are the art styles for mountains. 4 will be in the deck. And finally, the art for the forests, and you will find 8 of them. Okay, so my final thoughts on this deck. This seems like a lot of fun. I love Populate. I think it's a super sweet mechanic. It's also a good mechanic for newer players. If you compare this to Mystic Intellect or even the Faceless Menace deck we've already looked at, those decks are a little more complicated for somebody new. Morph can be a little bit confusing just because it doesn't use the stack. It can do some weird things. Mystic Intellect, the flashback mechanic isn't that difficult to understand, but the concept of the deck, trying to stay alive and scratch out the early turns to go off and have a big turn later in the game, that is a little more suited for an experienced player. This is the type of deck that you could give to a new player, and I think they would feel pretty comfortable. Populate's fun, it's very intuitive, it's easy to explain. So overall, I do think for that reason, this is a very good build. Now, aside from that, you get a lot of good cards here. If you wanted to buy this as a shell and then build off it, you really could. Granted, upgrades for this type of deck, like a token deck, can be very expensive because you're looking at things like doubling season and such. However, if you wanted to do that, you do have a good starting point here. When it comes to reprints, I said this yesterday too, they're doing better than they did. Last year, the value was really low on the decks. This year, it is a little bit higher. I would like to see it get at least a little bit higher, though. I do feel like for the price of the decks, considering they went up about a year ago, it would be nice to get a little more value. But they are trending in the right direction, so I'll give them points for that. Ultimately, though, I do like these products. For the price, you're getting a lot of cards, and you're able to play them out of the box, but they also give you something to work towards and build in the future if you want to. Okay, that covers the Primal Genesis deck. Tomorrow, we're going to come back to it one more time. We're going to look at the Merciless Rage deck, which is a madness deck. Saturday, we're going to come back and do our market watch, as we always do. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.